Gigi. So Gigi's going to tell us about some of the next steps, how we're going to organize ourselves, incentivize ourselves, inspire us to move forward in action, and at least some potential paths on which we might channel our energy.
Yes, correct.
Excellent.
I'll just tell you right now, we don't have all the answers yet. We don't have the roadmap, we don't have the project plan pinned down yet, because we want more input from you guys. But you've seen this picture before, you saw it yesterday. This is where we're heading. This is the LEAPS project, Learning Ecosystems Accelerator for Patient-Centered and Sustainable Innovation. This is where we're still going. You saw this morning. The goal of LEAPS is to drive significant impact in three dimensions, at the level of product innovation, regimen development, and disease management. And the idea here is, in terms of the specifics of what we're going to want to achieve, it's going to be defined by the stakeholders. That's going to be critical, because and it's been said multiple times today, if every stakeholder doesn't see a value proposition, they're not going to get involved and this isn't going to work. So that's why we're starting out with a feasibility assessment and design phase, because we really have to understand, once we figure out the disease, and I'll say that more about that in a minute, who are the critical stakeholders and what's our engagement strategy for all of them? We want payers at that table, by the way. They have to be at the table, or this isn't going to work. So we have what we call a conceptual roadmap. Whenever we start a new project in NEWDIGS, first of all, it's always very fuzzy. I'll just tell you that right now. But when people say, when will the pilot start and when will it end? We don't know that. So those kinds of questions we don't have yet, but we do have a set of methodologies and tools that we tend to tailor for the project. And remarkably, they generally work pretty well. There's certain principles to them, which is that, again, we take a case-based approach, and that tends to bring things down to ground level. But this conceptual roadmap it looks like this, and it has not been tailored at all yet, this picture for LEAPS. But just so you know, we do some foundational work figuring out who's going to be at the table. We get the resources we need. We develop a governance model, and then we start working on preparation for our first design lab. Design labs are the times that we convene the stakeholders, usually a 2 or a 3 day, usually a 2-day event. We do work before the design lab, and we do work after the design lab. So the design labs are a place where we work incrementally over time to continue to build and refine on the work that we're doing. So we already have dates pinned down for next year, sorry, Kay, for our first design lab, which will be in July. I don't recall the exact dates, but we have them. We've had them there for at least 6 months now. And it's very good for us to have those deadlines on the calendar, because it really fires us up. And it takes, generally speaking, 6 months to prepare for a design lab. And that's when we're looking at a monotherapy, not a system. So we have our work cut out for us. But the key thing about this is that there are usually a couple of design labs over the course of the year, and then there are teams. We will have collaborator teams, which will involve people from MIT and from outside of MIT, multi-stakeholder teams that are working on pieces of the story in order to prepare an integrated proposal or set of activities at the design lab. But we don't do a design lab and then it's done. It's a continuous process that we build on. And there will be significant time to do the feasibility assessment and design phase, and then there will be a pilot. One of the questions that always comes up is MIT going to run the pilot project? We don't know that yet. Typically, we don't. Actually, I know that seems kind of odd. We're a design shop. Right? And so far, we have, for example, in our work on adaptive licensing, the EMA did the pilot project. That was the first real-world pilot evaluation of the model we were looking at. We don't really know what this one will look like yet, and that's okay. You have to be willing to tolerate a little bit of ambiguity at the beginning. But what we do is that we make sure as we go, and as a pilot construct becomes more clear, we want to make sure that we have real-world implementation partners in the room as early as possible with us. The first step, we know we're going to start with a Massachusetts pilot. And then we have to figure out first what our selection criteria are going to be. What disease are we going to look at in LEAPS? And a few thoughts on that is, obviously not everything is going to work in a geographically defined ecosystem. Like, we can't take an ultra-orphan disease. It won't work. So we're going to have to really think hard about what would this kind of a setup allow us to look at in a very detailed way. Where can we really move the needle because of the particular strengths of Massachusetts and within a state-based test bed environment, and which things should we rule out that that's not a good fit for? There are two things that we know. One is we want to make sure that we're addressing an unmet need, and that's why we've already met with the head of Health and Human Services for the state of Massachusetts. She was quoted in our press release yesterday. She was really excited about this project, which was nice to see. She said she generally is only looked at when it's time to pay for things. So the idea that she could actually be involved in the innovation process was very exciting to her. But it can't just be an unmet need. We also need an area where there's a lot of innovation activity. We need at least 3 companies who have something in their pipeline that's going to be relevant here. Because we don't do anything that doesn't involve 3 different companies, because it doesn't really belong in a consortium if it's less than that. Whether the innovation has to be happening in Massachusetts-based companies or companies that have a Massachusetts presence, don't know yet, really. It would kind of be nice, but I'm not sure that we would want to rule that out if they didn't. And the other thing that we tend to do in NEWDIGS is, because the stakes are always so big in this industry, we try to make the stakes small. So we're going to assume we might not get it right on the first try, and that's okay. Whatever we start with, we will have put a lot of thought into it. We will learn from it, but we may choose another option. Or we may have more than one going on, but I'm not sure, because this is pretty big. Right, Deb? Probably limit it to 1. Then we leverage our design labs just to help us get smarter, help us do our process prototyping, and refine our selection criteria if it doesn't seem like we picked it right at the beginning. You guys have seen this many times today. We will be using this kind of a process. We will want to figure out, once we know the disease, who are the stakeholders. We have a stakeholder mapping process to make sure we have all the right players. And yes, Jane, we will have the public policy people in the room. We started with them this time. We want to make sure we have the right players. And again, we start by understanding what are our goals, what are our impact metrics that are going to be compelling value propositions for each of those stakeholders so they actually come and participate. We do anticipate that big data is going to be a big part of this. We're not starting with the data, but it's going to be a big part of what we do in the learning engine. These are some of the kinds of tools that we use. We've been referring to them: stakeholder mapping and segmentation, product and disease characterizations. There's lots of tools that we've developed we use in the FOCUS project that Mark was referencing. That's our financing and reimbursement of curative therapies in the US. We've done a lot of tool development for that. And we actually would like to connect up, I think, with the FOCUS project, if at all possible, because it's all part of the same system. Wherever we can use things that we already have, we will do that. We know we'll need to tailor it as we go, but we're not by any means starting from scratch, which is a good thing here. And the kinds of things that we've been developing, in this case, we're going to be looking at designing distributed ecosystem architectures, which we haven't done before, financing and incentive models, et cetera. All of this stuff, we've been doing a lot of this, and it's going to be applicable here. You saw the lame image of the learning engine here. Hopefully we'll get a better picture by the time of our design lab in July, but this will all be a part of the story. And so we'll start the Massachusetts pilot planning right off the bat, the feasibility assessment and design phase. As was mentioned in the press release, there are 4 diseases under consideration that have been raised by various people and players that we've spoken with: Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, opioid addiction. Even today, John Davis was saying, how about opioid abstinence syndrome in neonates. He said that's a huge problem, and we could use the inpatient population. And so people are starting to come to us and say, pick us, pick our disease, which that's a good thing. And but really what we need to do is figure out what our selection criteria are. We also will probably not just do one thing over time, whether we want to work with existing platform trials and help them accelerate more rapidly and disseminate that knowledge to other communities of practice, other platform trial communities, to help them learn from that. That's a possibility. There are other groups that are trying to come up with a de novo platform strategy for their disease. A lot of the patient advocacy groups in rare diseases are being encouraged to think that way, and then they call us and they say, do you know what that means, a platform strategy? How do we do that? So, there are lots of opportunities. But I think for right now, we're really going to focus hard on Massachusetts, and that just feels, I think, right to us. The initial team structure, it's going to be something like this, probably. There's going to be a steering committee, we know. There's going to be a group of big picture people who like thinking about system design, some of the people certainly who are here today. And there's probably going to be a team that's looking at platform trials, and whether that's plausible in the Massachusetts pilot. We may dovetail with an existing platform trial, or we may want to think about a new one, although after hearing Ann Barker's talk yesterday, I'm not so sure about that. She kind of scared me away from that one. We have a team that we call our wisdom team. This team, the name comes from the image below it. We're striving for better than data, evidence, knowledge, all the way up to the top of the pyramid for wisdom. And that is our group that has developed the tools like the 3-layer cake, looking at evidence planning and production. We're going to be taking the work that we've done so far and now scaling it to the system level. And we will absolutely have enabling technologies and tools. We just don't want to start there. But I mean, it's very exciting to see Sandy Pentland's talk today was really, I think, incredibly exciting. And so we will definitely have some work streams going on there as well. And I guess that's kind of, no, there's one more. Why is this not coming up? Down here, it is up there. Okay, so engagement opportunities. There are many ways for you guys to be involved with us. First of all, of course, GSK, Merck, and Sanofi, we're very grateful to you guys for your sponsorship, and we will need more sponsors, that's for sure. This is going to be very big, and we'd love to chat with any companies that are interested or any other funding sources. We even had somebody here offer to help us with fundraising, so that was really nice to hear. There will be lots of opportunities for collaboration. This at the organizational level, potentially at the individual level, and other communities of practice. So every disease area that is trying to build its platform trial and platform strategy, we see them as a community of practice. We want a network of those folks involved with this because, first of all, they are a distribution, dissemination channel for us. They become testbed environments. They also provide us with case material, what they're going through and what they're learning, what the questions are. That's all very valuable to us. So we look forward to collaborating with some of those third-party intermediaries, nonprofits who are running those kinds of platform trials. We are always looking to build our team at MIT. We have limited resources, I'll just say that. But for those of you who are mission-driven and looking for intellectual excitement, we would love to chat with you. We have a number of folks, including some people who are still here, who work with us on secondment. Their companies send them to us for part-time or even full-time placements. Even Hans Georg spent some time with us here, and that was fantastic. So we love welcoming people in, either as employees or on secondments. And we do have design labs. We very carefully craft who we invite to those based on the case that we're looking at and the kinds of expertise that we need. But there is a box outside, I believe, Eric, right? That if people want to stay involved with us in some way, put your card in the box, and we will keep you in our loop. And that's about as much as I can tell you about where we're heading next. So come and leap with us. We're working on our branding here. I just want to end this on a very positive note and say thank you to all of you for still being here, because it was a long couple of days. We covered a lot of ground. And there are so many people to thank. I was afraid I would forget them if I didn't write them down here. But Mark, I want to thank you very much for helping us navigate the couple of days. You did a fabulous job.
Thanks very much.
And I'm just going to mention a few of these folks because I don't want this to get like, an award ceremony or anything. But the two Erics, Eric Small, Eric Norman, thank you very, very, very much for your help. And Kay did an enormous amount to help us get ready, and Deb also, the two heavy lifters in the background. And then everybody else there, I'm not going to read all the names, but it took a lot of effort to pull all this together, and we really appreciate everybody's help. So thank you all for hanging around and being a part of this, and we look forward to staying in close touch with you. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.